Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Jerry. My channel is dedicated to helping people go through a difficult time. It's also dedicated to helping people find hope and purpose in the world that we live in today. My Bible study had been wanting to do a study about prayer, and we decided to go ahead and read the book by Phil Wickham called On Our Knees. It is a 40 days to living boldly in prayer challenge, and it definitely was a challenge. So every single day you read about 3 pages of the book, so they're all sectioned off, and I'll just show you an example of what a chapter looks like. So this is day 2. It's literally a little bit of scripture. Then Phil, the author, talks a little bit about his story and how he relates to the type of prayer that you're doing that day. It's only this long. It's like 2 pages. Then he does a little prayer. And then at the end, there's a prayer practice that you can apply what you've learned that day, and then prayer reflection questions. So I'll get into this in a little bit, but I will say after going through this book, I am way more confident in my prayer life. I understand God's character even more. This has just been such a wonderful eye-opener to my prayer life. Now let's get into the book review. So if you want to have a better prayer life, this was such an effective book. Not only did I learn how to pray better, and every single day is a different way to pray. And who knew there were 40 ways to pray? But he definitely goes over all of the different ways, and he correlates them with scripture, which I love because I hadn't really been in the Old Testament in a really long time. Much like a lot of Christians, we like to stick to the feel good, the gospel. We like to read about Jesus, but to understand how God answered prayers in the Old Testament, and looking for God in the Old Testament, sometimes people are like, "Oh, I'm David, and who's the Goliath in my life?" Like, no, look at the story instead and go, where is God in David's life, and what is God doing, and what did David do that God was pleased with, or what did he do that God was not pleased with? How did he answer prayers for him? How did they pray? And that's exactly what Phil does in the book. The first 17 days, he goes over some of the Old Testament. He'll put in some scripture. For example, this one is God hears us even when we don't have the words. And then he'll talk about a little snippet in the Bible, in scripture, where some of the Israelites were moaning and groaning in slavery, and God looked down and he was concerned about them. And that is like he started to answer a prayer that way. So sometimes you think about when you're going through a really difficult time and you're laying down and you're just crying and all you're doing is moaning and groaning, and just God hears you and knows that you can communicate that way through your prayers. Like, God knows your heart. And that's something that is just so beautiful, is that you don't even have to say a word when you're praying sometimes, or all you can do is say help. So he'll do that, and then he will talk a little bit about his own life. And Phil, he's a dad and a husband, and clearly I'm not a dad, I'm not a husband, but I was still able to relate to his daily stories and incorporate them in my own life as well, and say, yeah, I can relate to that emotion. Yeah, I could see how that would fit in my life. He really does explain how he's used the prayers in his life, that you can effectively start using those prayers in your life as well. Some of my favorite ones were understanding that even in our disobedience, God will hear our prayers. Even when we are not living perfectly, one of the things that Phil said in the book is that we don't have to have 5 gold stars for God to use us, for God to let his spirit fall on us, for God to speak words to us when we're looking, even if we are living sinfully, or if we are not living the best Christian life or making the smartest choices that we can. God still can use us to help others. And I just think that's something that whatever day it was, and I was reading through this book, and I was like, I love that. I'm going to start praying like that. I'm just going to say, God, like, I don't have to have 5 gold stars for you to have grace on me. Will you please just have grace on me? And that was something that I could really incorporate in my own life. So I would say you should set aside 20 minutes every day if you are going to listen to the book, if you are going to just read through that day. But if you are going to do the actual prayer practice, if you are going to read the chapter that's suggested, so at the beginning he'll suggest a chapter or some verses for you to read, and then he'll have you go into, so it's just that little snippet of scripture at the beginning. Then he'll have you read that chapter and then go into the day's reading. And if you're going to do that, plus the prayer practice, which I found to be the easiest part of it, was incorporating the prayers after listening. And then the prayer reflections, where you can just kind of sit back and reflect on today's reading. Then I would say, please set yourself aside an hour. And I would say do that right away in the morning. As you know, God visits us every morning. If you don't know that, you just say, okay, if you have a word for me today, God, just give it to me, and then go into this, and it will really help you kind of circle around your day and think about it throughout the day. And that's something I just loved about this. And I will say it is a prayer challenge for a reason. There were days I definitely missed, but also I was able to read even if I had to catch up. It's really, 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 really important that when you do a challenge that you just stick to it. Even if you skip a day, just start again the next day. Never look back on your missing a day as like, oh, now I can't do this prayer challenge anymore. Just really keep pushing through it and keep it a part of your life, because this book will grow your relationship with God. I guess it's something that I was getting really monotonous with my prayers. I was praying for the same things every single day, and I was just like, okay, I need to really like change things up. And this book gave me the opportunity to do that, because it gave me information on how to pray simply. It gave me information on how to pray silently. It gave me information on how to make bold and what seemed like impossible prayers, but make them with confidence. It taught me how to pray with scripture. It taught me how to pray with others. It taught me how to pray for others. It taught me how to pray for forgiveness and pray like Jesus did, and pray using the Spirit, and praying with hope, and praying even when I had anxiety. So that's just a little snippet of what you're going to get out of this book. And I highly, highly, highly recommend it for anybody who is looking to up their prayer game. The book is available through audio. It is also, I got this one at Barnes & Noble, and I think you can get it on Amazon as well. I'm not a huge reader, but I'm going to do my best to comprehend and read things and then come back and give you the information about it so that you can decide whether or not you want to take the leap and read the book yourself. All right, until next time, bye.